Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a very, very close look at something that seems so simple. The classic perfect blunt haircut.
Right.
You know, that impossibly straight, super sharp line, the Cleopatra cut, as some people call it.
It looks simple, but the process we're diving into today is pure engineering.
Yeah.
It's not just about chopping hair.
Not at all.
Our sources lay out this incredibly technical, zero error approach. It's a guide to the geometry you need to get what stylists call a cut or blunt line.
And we have a step-by-step masterclass here. It really covers everything, from the very first section at the nape of the neck, all the way to that final perfect fringe.
So our mission for you today is to see past the simple look and really understand the angles, the tools, and the steps you need to get that perfect clean haircut.
And crucially, how to avoid the absolute nightmare scenario for any blunt cut.
Oh, yeah.
What our sources call kabarma.
That's the one. That's the key term.
That dreaded puffiness, right? That swelling at the bottom that just makes the whole thing look like a bell instead of a sharp, sleek line.
Exactly. And this whole method is basically designed to prevent that. It's all about control, and it starts with the foundation, we can call zero-degree geometry.
Okay, let's get into that foundation. Every great cut has to start somewhere perfect. So where does a stylist even begin, before the scissors even come out?
The prep it's meticulous. First, they set up the main architectural lines. So you have the profile separation, which divides the front from the back.
Okay.
And then what they call the crown separation, the tasayunmo. You're basically mapping out the whole head.
And the actual cutting, that starts right at the bottom, at the nape of the neck, the incident. The guide says to start with the thinnest possible horizontal slice of hair. Why so thin?
Because that first little section is everything. I mean, it is the most important measurement of the entire cut. It's your length guide, the kolevus, for every single piece of hair that comes after.
So if that's off by even a tiny bit?
The whole cut inherits the mistake. The whole thing will be crooked.
Wow. So how do you make sure that first line is absolutely flawless? This is where the tools get really interesting.
Right. This is the difference between just, freehanding it and actual precision measurement. The guide specifically says to use the comb like a ruler or set veljibi.
So it's not just for brushing.
Not at all. It's a measuring tool.
Mm-hmm.
You're using it to create a perfectly straight baseline, what they call the hat line.
And that brings us to the big one, the 0-degree angle. What is so important, and I guess so fragile, about cutting at 0 degrees?
0 degrees just means the hair is falling exactly as gravity pulls it, no elevation at all. The source really hammers this home. It's the absolute requirement for a truly sharp, blunt line. The second you lift the hair, you introduce an angle.
And what's the most common mistake? How do people accidentally do that?
By using their fingers. The moment you hold the hair parmakarasi between your fingers, you've already lifted it away from the scalp.
Oh.
You've created a millimetric biras, a tiny millimetric angle, and that slight elevation will make the hair stack all wrong. It just ruins the bluntness.
That's a huge insight. So to get around that, you basically have to take your fingers completely out of the equation.
Completely. The technique is to use the comb underneath the hair section, the terraculti method. The comb holds the hair flat and acts as that 0-degree plane. So when the scissors cut, the hair is in its absolute natural falling position.
And there's one last little detail before that first cut is even made. The client's head position. It says they should be tilted slightly forward. Why is that?
It's all about tension. It just relaxes everything around the neck and the scalp, lets the hair hang completely clean and straight down the back. It minimizes any chance of, something pulling the hair out of place before you set that all-important guide.
That makes total sense. Every tiny detail is about making that guide physically perfect.
Right.
So once that foundation is set, how do you carry that flawless line all the way up the back of the head?
Well, now we're into what you could call progression and quality control. As you said, that first section is now the guide, the kolevus, and the rest of the process is just disciplined repetition.
So the stylist just moves up the back, section by section, kademi alerlimek, always with those horizontal partings. They comb the hair down in its natural fall.
The dozo du shurle.
Right. And they cut exactly to the length of the section below it.
And to keep it all symmetrical, they work from the center, out. A little bit on the right, then a little bit on the left, bisol. It's like using a level when you're building a wall, just constantly checking for balance.
But I want to pause on that for a second. The why of this. Why go through all the trouble of these tiny little sections? Wouldn't it be way faster to just, pull all the hair down at once and chop it?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it gets to the heart of this whole technique. If you pull all the hair down and cut it in one go, you hit two huge problems. First, the hair isn't all the same. The hair from the crown has a longer way to travel than the hair from the nape.
So the density is all wrong at the cutting line.
It's completely uneven. The whole reason for cutting kadam section by section is to make sure the hair distributes homogeneously, that every strand hangs equally. If you cut it all at once, the ends become, as the source says, kapkullen, super thick and dense.
And we know what happens when the ends are too thick.
You get kabarma. That's your puffiness.
Yeah.
That thickness has nowhere to go but out, so the ends swell up and you lose that sleek, clean line. Progressive cutting avoids that. By following the guide in these small, controlled slices, you're distributing the weight perfectly. It keeps the error rate, the hara orana, incredibly low.
So all that painstaking work isn't just for show. It's a structural necessity to manage the hair's weight and density. The prevention is literally built into the method.
Exactly. And just when you think you've got this perfect geometric line on the back, you run straight into the messy reality of the human body.
Right, which brings us to the sides. Because heads aren't square, and ears especially get in the way.
This is one of the most brilliant parts of the whole guide. When the stylist gets to the hair around the ear, they can't just keep cutting that straight line. It won't work.
They mention this really specific little move, cutting slightly above the ear and just touching the hair with the scissors makasimla biraz dokundurdum. It sounds so subtle. What's that about?
It's all about the ear's protrusion, the kuladen kabaraklu. Think about it. If you just pulled the hair straight down over the ear and cut it, that hair is being stretched.
And when you let it go,
it springs back up, and your line is ruined. The shape of the ear itself would physically spoil the angle boskakte.
Wow.
So by cutting just above the ear and just sort of touching the length, they're creating this tiny little arc that accounts for the bump of the ear. It ensures that when the hair finally settles, the line looks perfectly straight.
That's amazing. It's like you're not cutting for what you see right now, but for what you know will happen once the hair settles.
It's a kind of spatial awareness, really. Now, the source does mention that sometimes stylists might add a tiny bit of an angle on purpose, using a finger cutting technique, parmak arazike kesim, to give it like a millimeter of movement. But that's a choice, not a mistake.
Got it. So once the back and sides are done, it's all about quality control. The guide says they do a rigorous check, a control ediorum, to fix any little uneven strands.
Right, they're looking for any duzensiesjährleri, just cleaning it all up. They'll part the hair down the middle and the front and just physically check that both sides are perfectly even. No point all that work if the front is lopsided.
Which finally brings us to the grand finale, the precision fringe, or kakul. If the rest of the cut was about 0-degree geometry, the fringe seems to be all about using anatomy as a ruler.
It is. The whole focus shifts to creating this perfectly straight, blunt fringe, and it starts with a very specific parting. A triangular section, the ujen motifi.
And this triangle isn't random. It starts by taking a line of sight from the end of the eyebrow kas, bitiminden hiza alarak.
Super precise. Once they've separated that triangle and pin it away, tenstiorum, the first thing they do is wet the hair. Fringe hair dries so fast, and if it's not evenly damp, the cut will be uneven.
And here's the part that really blew my mind. The measurement system. There's no guesswork.
No, it's brilliant.
Huh?
To cut that first horizontal piece of the fringe, the stylist doesn't grab a ruler. They place their own middle finger right into the indentation of the client's nose, the burun sukuru, and use that as the guide.
So using that exact spot on the face guarantees the fringe will land perfectly at the eyebrow line tam boilekashizasenda. It's a built-in, repeatable measurement every single time.
It's a masterstroke of practical technique. It gives you a flawless center point. And once that is cut, the rest is easy. You just match the left and right sections to that center guide.
And the result is that final, clean, blunt, katakut, net birkezim. I mean, we've gone from 0 degrees at the nape to using a comb as a ruler to adapting for the curve of an ear and finally using the nose as a biological measuring stick. It's an incredible journey.
It really is. And it just completely changes how you look at a quote-unquote simple haircut. We've seen how essential that section-by-section work is for managing weight and stopping that puffiness. This whole deep dive just proves that quality here is all about maximizing physical control.
It's a masterclass in geometric control and, really, in anticipation. The quality of the haircut is defined by all the steps you take to prevent these tiny little flaws. The weight of the hair, the the curve of the skull.
The complexity is all hidden in the process. It's all about creating an environment where that perfect zero-degree fall is never, ever compromised.
That leaves us with a really compelling thought to end on. We've seen how getting a flawless result, like this blunt cut, relies on this hidden system of precise sequential adjustments, all designed to counteract the natural flaws of physics or anatomy. It makes you wonder what other tasks that look simple on the surface, whether it's baking bread, tuning an engine, or even setting a stone in jewelry, what other craft relies on a similarly complex sequence of steps, all designed to proactively avoid one minor flaw that would otherwise spoil the entire masterpiece. Something to think about as you notice the hidden systems all around you.